It's my honor to be invited to the webinar series. Today's my topic is Body at the Qing, but Heart at the Ming, a shifting ethnic rhetoric towards Han soldiers in pre-conquest Qing. So I am a Chinese historian looking mainly at the Qing China. The Qing is the last dynasty of China, but it has a strong repercussion of influence to today's China. First of all, it declared the territories of today's modern China, because before Qing China, which was the Ming dynasty, it was so much more smaller. It was the Qing dynasty which incorporated today's Manchuria, Mongolia, Tibet, Xinjiang, as well as Taiwan into China's territory. Secondly, it declared China's foundation as a multi-ethnic empire. For a very long time, China was ruled by Han Chinese ethnic regimes. But for the Qing dynasty, it was founded by these people who call themselves, or who were called Manchus. So the Manchu people, although numerically inferior to the Han Chinese, who made up of almost like 99% of the population, they actually ruled the country. And they also incorporated the Mongolians, Tibetans, and other people into this multi-ethnic empire, Qing Empire. And that found the ethnic landscape of today's China. For my research, I look mainly at the transitional period between the Ming dynasty and the Qing dynasty, which is also the last dynastic transition of imperial China. In particular, I look at this Qing Empire and how it slowly, actually quite rapidly, I'm sorry, how it eventually conquered the whole of Ming Empire. So I'm mainly looking at the Qing side, or the focus of today's is the ambivalence of using ethnic soldiers to fight against enemy of their own ethnic group. So the Qing people started right here at what we call the Manchuria, the brown area, which is highlighted as Qing Empire here. So they were like numerically inferior to the Great Ming China. So at some point, they decided to use other people. They decided to use the captured or Han Chinese in the Qing state, or those who defected from the Ming army to the Qing army. They decided to use these people as ethnic soldiers and to fight against the Chinese army of the Ming Empire. So for quite a long time, it went pretty well. But as these Han Chinese soldiers had more political demands towards their Manchu overlords, and as the Ming and Qing tension escalated as the battles and wars become more frequent and fierce, there was this tension within the Qing state between the Manchu ruling class and the Han Chinese soldiers. To that end, the emperor of the Qing dynasty decided to deploy a new ethnic rhetoric that would suppress the political demands of the Han Chinese soldiers, and in return demanded them to show their loyalty and show their military value. After years of negotiation, eventually they came to an agreement, which was an institutional solution that would give these Han Chinese soldiers a special legal status. In return, they pledged their loyalty and fought fearlessly for the Qing Empire. But before we dive in there, let's give everyone a brief introduction to early Qing history. The Qing state, or the Qing dynasty, was founded by this person, Rhetoric. At first, he was just a tribal lord right here at Liaodong, if you see right at the west of Korea, Liaodong area. During the Ming dynasty, since the 14th century, this area was the protectorate of the Ming Empire. So all the tribal lords got their seals and recognition by the Ming Emperor, and they ruled over their own people. But starting from the late 16th century, one of the tribal lords, Rhetoric, started to encroach and defeated other tribes and put them all under his rule. And finally, in 1616, he declared war against the Ming Empire and declared independence. In 1619, the Ming decided to dispatch a large army to fight against Nurhaci. Although numerically inferior, Nurhaci was able to defy and cut the Ming army. So this cut the whole Ming momentum in the Liaozhong area. For 8 years, Nurhaci quickly subdued all the Ming strongholds within the cities, one by one. The Ming was so desperate that they decided they almost needed to retreat back to the south of the Great Wall, right here. Shanghai Pass was the last gate. And between Shanghai Pass and the Ming and the Qing, there was only one more stronghold, which was called the Ningyuan city. So at that time, the Ming Emperor asked the defenders from Ningyuan to retreat back to Shanghai Pass because there was no way for them to resist the formidable Qing army. But the commander at the battle at the Ningyuan city decided to die with the city. But he did not defend Ningyuan with empty hand. He had the cutting-edge European artillery, which they named it as the Red Hair Barbarian. That's because at that time, the Chinese people thought all the Westerners, especially the Dutch and the English, as red hair, and they considered them barbarian. So since this European artillery were brought by the Dutch and the British, they call them red hair barbarian cannons, or we just call them European cannons in this presentation. So this cannon was so much bigger than the original cannons found in Ming China. And the defenders placed these large cannons at the top of the cities. This monstrous weapon destroyed a lot of Qing cavalry and resisted waves after waves of assault. Finally, after 8 years for the first time, the Ming was able to resist a Qing attack. Nurhaci was very disappointed. It was considered the greatest defeat of his life, and soon after the battle, he died. His son, Hong Taiji, at the right, succeeded him. But now Hong Taiji had a strategic dilemma. And now that he found that he had no weapons or no way of capturing any more Ming wall cities or strongholds. Even worse, the Ming decided to erect more and more strongholds within this Liaoxi corridor. That is the thin corridor between Shanghai Pass and Manchuria. And the latest city is called Dalinghe, which was right at the gate at the Qing state. So Hong Taiji was a smart person. He decided to learn from the enemy. He decided to build his own artillery corps equipped with the latest European cannons. He found that some of the captured or defected Han Chinese in his own Khanate were actually Han artillery experts who knew how to forge cannons or who knew how to use cannons. So he decided to build one of this Han army, Han division, which was specifically used as artillery corps. So before we continue, let's talk about some Manchu terminology. Manchu is a very interesting language. It is also a pretty simple one. Simple in the way that it does not have a lot of words. Instead, a lot of Manchu words share the same, a lot of different concepts share the same Manchu words. For example, Gulun right here, G-U-R-U-N, it could mean country, tribe, people, or ruling house or dynasty. So it can be super confusing. Same case for Chuha, C-O-H-A. Army, troops, soldiers, military, martial, all are denoted by Chuha. So for the Qing dynasty, it would mean its Manchu name is Dai Qing Gulun. That means a great Qing dynasty. So they call the Ming dynasty the Dai Ming Gulun, the great Ming dynasty. Or they also call it the Nikan Igulun. That means the Chinese dynasty or the Chinese country. But at the same time, they also call the Chinese within their own territories the Nikan, the Han Chinese. Even worse, they named this new Han division their own artillery corps, populated by the Han Chinese, the Han Army, Nikan Yi Chuha. That means, yeah, Chinese Army. The most confusing thing is that the army of the Ming Dynasty sometimes, occasionally, was also denoted by Nikan Yi Chuha. So to us, it's super confusing. To the contemporaries, it also means that they could quickly shift their enmity from one and shift it to another. Like if they hate the Ming army, because of this linguistic context, they could easily shift it to their own Han Chinese division. And I'm arguing this posed a great problem when there was a tension between the Manchu and the Nikan and the Han Chinese within the Qing state. So after a few years, for the first few years, the artillery corps of the Qing dynasty, this Han army, have done pretty well. It helped capturing some very important Ming strongholds. But after a few years, tension started to appear. Internally, these Han soldiers started to ask for more social and political privileges. And externally, the Ming and Qing had more and more wars between each other. And there was this, the tensions further escalated. So now the Manchu ruling class feel worried about the loyalty of their own Han soldiers. And they needed to suppress their political demands at the same time to retain their military value. So Hong Taiji, the emperor of Qing dynasty, deployed this new ethnic rhetoric in court trials to suppress the political demands of the Han soldiers. So one point of contention between the Han soldiers and their Manchu ruling class is on the conflict of conscription. At that time, most of the Han Chinese in the Qing state were bond servants or just slaves. In Manchu, it's called buyaha. Aha, that means slaves. Bu, that means house. So household bond servants or household slaves. Only a handful of Han Chinese were civilians or soldiers. But after a few years, as Han army accumulated its political momentum, these Han army people started to request Hong Taiji to emancipate more of their own people, more bond servants. They claimed that it's better to conscript these Han slaves as Han soldiers, so that the Han artillery corps can expand and they could be more useful. That would be a good thing, of course, to the Han Chinese, but not so much for their Manchu slave owners. Especially a lot of them were aristocracy of the Manchu state. So Hong Taiji now faced this dilemma. He needed to suppress the rising political demands of the Han elites. At the same time, he needed to retain them as their loyal and useful Han soldiers. So to illustrate this rising rhetoric, I'm going to use 3 cases of court trials to explain how it escalated from 1634 to 1639. The first one is what I termed the coffee dispute, which took place in 1634. That was 3 years after the establishment of the Han army. At that time, some mid to low-ranking Han army officers came to the emperor saying that their tax level and their coffee level was so much higher than the Manchu. It was not fair. So they demanded a decrease of their workload. And Hong Taiji did not take it positively. When talking to his own advisor after receiving the demands, he said, these useless people, talking about the Chinese, dare to say these disgracious words because they forget the hardship they suffered in Liaodong. I shall talk them through, otherwise their resentment persists. So he gathered all the Han Jin officials in the court, and then he read his edict. In the edict, he claims that the Nikan received their own banner as the Han army and elevated social political privileges solely due to his grace. a grace even greater than that granted to the Manchus. Secondly, he asserts that the Nikan had an easier promotion track in the military and the court, again, solely due to his grace. Third, he recounts incidents of Nikan spying for the Ming, casting doubt on their loyalty. Lastly, he compares the military contributions of the Manchus and the Nikan soldiers, claiming that the Manchus were braver and stronger. So, these are some of the extracts that show how Greek Hong Taiji was. For example, he said, I extracted you from the Manchu princess household and put you into a banner. In this sense, banner means the Han army. Since then, you can ride your own horse and use your own cattle. Your wives are exempted from being bond servants after you die, and you can choose the fertile land to farm and consume your own harvest. That basically means emancipation from slavehood. And then he continued, let us compare the military merits of you Han officials and the Manchu officials. Who received a promotion in an easier way? The Manchus spared no pains fighting for the country, many of whom fought 100 battles and many 40 or 50 battles. How many battles have you Han officials fought? I quickly promoted you when I saw you contributing slightly. This grace is not granted to the Manchus. If I promote you like I promoted the Manchus, promoting them according to the wounds one suffered, then I do not know what rank your general commanders would be right now. Lastly, when he ended this lengthy edict, he wrote, Manchu and Nikan are both my people. Why do you not know your level of glory is unproportionately lower than the Manchus? They take up 30 more items of glory than you. Compare what I said and what you have said, and judge fairly. Do you think you suffer more, or do the Manchus suffer more? You may speak freely. The tricky thing here is that Hong Taiji demanded the response of the Han officials. So the Han army commanders apprehended the officials who filed the complaints, and then they repeated Hong Taiji's ethnic rhetoric in their speech and begged for forgiveness. In a tactful way, Hong Taiji just exonerated all Han officials after reprimanding them because he still needed them to serve him militarily and politically. But by forcing the Han officials to subscribe to this ethnic rhetoric, Hong Taiji suppressed their political demands. So this was the first round. This was also the first emergence of the ethnic rhetoric. In the following few years, this rhetoric repeatedly appeared in court trials, especially those relating to Han-Chinese affairs. But in 1638, there was this huge escalation of tension within the rhetoric, as I term it the Zhu Xichang's trial. So this person, Zhu Xichang, was one of the earliest Han Army regiment commanders. He was an early defector to the Qing from the Ming, and he was very important because he oversaw the construction of key fortifications in Manchuria for the Qing. So by 1637, he was pretty prominent in the Qing court, although he was, of course, suppressed by the Manchu aristocracy and Manchu officials. Still, he submitted a memorial. He called for a ban on the sale of captured Han women to music household as prostitutes. So at that time, the Manchu soldiers would, when they raided Ming China, they would capture a lot of women and children back to Manchuria. And then these captured people, sometimes even including men, they would be distributed to different Manchu households according to the soldiers' contribution. So these people, bond servants, were considered assets of the owner. So the asset could just sell them to anyone as a good. So there was basically no law prohibiting the slave's owner to sell their Han women bond servants to music households. So this was a pretty good memorial, but Hong Taiji took it in a very negative way. So he dismissed Zhu's proposal as a threat to ethnic harmony. He argued that while he had already prohibited prostitution within the Qing state, he had no right to prevent Manchu soldiers from selling their bondservants, who were hard-earned spoils of war. He also framed Jews' memorial as privileging the Han interest over Manchu sacrifices, warning that such actions could lead to dangerous factionism. And Hong Taiji commissioned two Han censorate officials to investigate Zhu. Again, this is a very tricky move. Instead of asking any Manchu officials to investigate Zhu Xichang, he commissioned two Han Chinese officials to investigate their own people. This makes the ethnic landscape more precarious to everyone in the court trial. So, in his edict, Hong Taiji argues that Zhu Xichang's edict would lead to Manchu officials sheltering Manchus, Mongol officials sheltering Mongols, and Han officials sheltering Nikan. And in that case, how could he foster ethnic harmony within his home state? And then he continued with this novel way of speaking. He said that this Zhu Xichang, this guy, his body was present, yes, his heart remains with the Ming. So this is almost an accusation of treason. Just asking Hong Taiji for to banning the selling of Han women as prostitute, Hong Taiji escalated this to the level of treason. So, two Han censorate officials were commissioned to investigate Zhu Xichang. They found Zhu and his accomplices who submitted the memorial to Hong Taiji, found them all guilty. According to them, all should be put to death and have their property confiscated. And in their trial statement, they repeated Hong Taiji's ethnic rhetoric. They said, while the body is in the Great Qing, Zhu Xichang's heart still yearns for the Ming. So here, it's the tricky thing is Hong Taiji forced them to use the same rhetoric, even the same idea and concept to judge their own people, thus to accuse them of treason. So, and then they continue. These Han officials charged Jews for sheltering the Nikan, which is equivalent to spying for the Ming. So, in this edict, I only captured some of the points, but basically the whole edict by Hong Taiji follows all the main points that we saw in the previous court fee incident. It again claims that the Nikan received their own banner due to his grace, and assert that the Nikan had an easier promotion track, recount incidents of the Chinese spying for the Ming, and compare their military contributions. And now they charge the Nikan with treason and sheltering their own ethnic people. In the end, Hong Taiji, as usual, pardoned most of their death sentences, but exiled the Jews' brothers. So this was still a huge blow. So now the ethnic tension became very intensified in the Qing court, and the Han commander started to feel pressure. But the nightmare is yet to come. There was the Songshan trial in the next year. And this trial is interesting because it involved military and the performance of the artillery court. So the Songshan was a stronghold of the Ming dynasty. So at that time, Hong Taiji decided to, for the first time, use artillery solely as the main weapon to capture Ming City. So this was an experimental siege, and it was the first artillery siege conducted by the Qing dynasty, sorry. And it was also the first attempt of infantry artillery coordination. The idea is that the Qing would concentrate all its artillery at the south side of the city. They would bombard the city for a day and to crumble it. After crumbling it, the Qing would commit the Manchu cavalry to storm the city without scaling ladder. They thought in this way they could capture the city in a matter of days. So everything went quite well. The wall crumbled in the evening after a day of bombardment. But at this point, the Manchu commander requested delaying the assault to the following morning. They claimed that the sun is going down, and they would not have enough sunlight to assault the city. That would pose danger to the Manchu cavalry and the Manchu assault force. So Hong Taiji decided to take the advice, but to their surprise, the Ming defenders repaired their breached walls overnight. So in the next morning, when Hong Taiji ordered the assault against Songshan city, they failed to take the city. And Hong Taiji lost 20 of his elite guards. Even worse, the Qing artillery corps ran out of ammunition. That means that they could not renew the bombardment and charge the city again. And they needed to take ammunition back from far away from Shenyang, which was the capital city of the Qing dynasty. So the whole momentum of the operation was lost. And after 1 year of a month of besieging, Hong Taiji decided to retreat disgracefully. So to me, this was basically a tactical mistake or a strategic mistake. And also due to their lack of wrong estimation of ammunition usage, that caused them this battle. That's why they needed to retreat without any success. But Hong Taiji saw this as an issue of ethnic loyalty. Back in his capital, he launched this huge Songshan trial and tried all the Han army commanders. He accused the commanders of not wanting to hurt their fellow Han people in Songshan. That's why they lied about the ammunition. According to Hong Taiji, some ammunition was later transported to Songshan to renew the bombardment. But a few days later, the commanders just falsely reported that they used up all the ammunition again, forcing the whole army to retreat. But after retreating back to Shenyang, back to the capital city, when they recount all their ammunition, they found that actually they brought back a lot of ammunition from Songshan. That means that the commanders lied about the ammunition level. Secondly, Hong Taiji charged them of deliberately built bad roads to hinder the transport of artillery. At that time, all divisions in the military were in charge of building roads. And according to Hong Taiji, the road built by the Han Chinese were particularly bad. And he attributed it to ethnic loyalty, saying that they did not want to pave the road because they don't want to hurt their fellow Han people in the Ming side. Lastly, Hong Taiji accused them of manufacturing bad cannonballs. These cannonballs, according to the reports, would just shatter right after coming out from the barrel. It's because the quality was so bad. The quality of the iron that was used to cast the cannonballs were so bad. So again, after the edict, Hong Taiji just added that all these Han commanders, their body being here, but their hearts not forgetting the Ming. That's why they deliberately failed the siege of Songshan. So the Han army commanders were punished, ranging from death penalty to confiscation of properties. As usual, Hong Taiji stepped in and exonerated the commanders. Given the strategic needs for the artillery corps, Hong Taiji could not do much but to suppress the Han army's political demands with ethnic rhetoric. But it also shows that the Han army needed to prove their loyalty and military values if they want to continue to serve and to retain their political privileges. So finally, in 1642, they were able to prove their loyalty. So 3 years after the failure of Songshan, they devised a new tactic to capture walled cities quickly. So at that time, there were, so you see there, Songshan, and then at the south of it was Xingshan, which was another stronghold of the Ming. And then at the south of it was Tashan, which was another stronghold. In 1641 and 42, Hong Taiji launched a prolonged besiege of Songshan and the Jinzhou, which was at the northwest point of the map, which was the biggest stronghold of the Ming at the time. So after a year of blockade, they finally took these two strongholds. And now Hong Taiji decided to dispatch part of the army as well as the whole Han army, the whole artillery corps, to capture Xingshan. And this time it was a success. The artillery corps deployed its cannons to the west of Tashan and started the bombardment. This time they started early, much earlier, I think, at around 3 a.m. in the morning or around that time. So by noon the next day, a section of the wall, around 60 meters long, crumbled under continuous heavy fire. The Qing infantry immediately poured through the bridge and captured the stronghold. So 2 weeks later, the Qing army transferred their cannons to the north of the city of Xingshan and captured all the detached forts outside of Xingshan. On the following day, the besiegers set up an artillery position at the captured forts and started bombarding Xingshan city. A wall section of around 80 meters long, unable to withstand a concentrated fire, collapsed. Now, fearing the fate of Tashan, the defenders promptly surrendered. So these two sieges were a huge success to the Qing dynasty as well as to the Han artillery corps. For the first time, they show Hong Taiji that they actually had the ability to quickly subdue a stronghold. This was also the original intention of Hong Taiji's creating the Hanjin in the first place. Han Taiji was very, very happy. After concluding the two sieges, he sent a lot of letters to his vassals in Korea, in Mongolia, and to other tribes in Manchuria, claiming his victory. In the edict, he specifically highlighted that his army captured Xingshan and Tashan with artillery and without scaling ladders. So apparently, he was very happy about this success, and it was very important to him that he could now take strongholds within a matter of days and without scaling ladders. So now the Han army elites, the Han army commanders were finally in the position to negotiate with Hong Taiji for political privileges. But the question remains. So part of the Han Chinese, the Nikan, the soldiers, they showed their loyalty as well as their military capability, but not all of them. So how should Hong Taiji maintain their loyalty while also to give them political privileges? So in the end, they decided to create this whole new institution called the Hanjin Eight Banners. So let's talk about Eight Banners first. Eight Banners was the basic social and military organization of the Manchu society. It was established by Nurhaci back in late 16th century. All Manchus were registered under the Eight Banners. Within banners, there were regiments, and in regiments, under regiments, there were companies. Every Manchu were registered. Every Manchu household were registered in the company. And then in 1635, there was this Mongol Eight Banners. That part of the Mongolian people were also incorporated into this central institution of the Qing dynasty. But there was no Han Eight Banners, most probably because Hong Taiji was not so sure about the loyalty of these Han subjects. But now, since a portion of these Han soldiers show their military value and their loyalty, he decided to build these Hanjin Eight Banners. So this segregated the Han soldiers from the rest of the Han subjects. And the Hanjin Eight Banners, which also means the Han Army Eight Banners, gave these Han soldiers inheritable legal status with stipend and fast-track promotion in official careers. In return, these people must perform military and administrative duties to Hong Taiji and to the Manchu ruling house. So this finally concluded the ethnic rhetoric I'm not saying that tension disappeared. Still, the shared ethnic background between the Chinese soldiers and their enemy, Chinese enemy, remain. But now, with these 108 banners and with these people showing their loyalty and capability, the Qing rulership finally decided to trust these people and to incorporate them into their own central organ. So to quickly conclude this presentation, this presentation talks about the ambivalent enmity toward a regime's ethnic soldiers. At first, the ruling house, suspicious of the loyalty and military value of the ethnic soldiers, they suppressed the ethnic soldiers' political demands with a growing ethnic rhetoric. They also forced the Han officials to subscribe to the new ethnic rhetorics in court trial. They forced them, the Manchu ruler forced them to use the same rhetoric in their replies. They accused the ethnic soldiers of treason when military debacles occurred. And they demanded ethnic soldiers to prove their loyalty and military value. Lucky for these Han ethnic soldiers, they were able to do it. They showed Hong Taiji that they were able to capture walled cities within a matter of days without scaling ladders. So finally, they came up with this agreement with an institutional solution to create a new ethnic soldiers' identity, which is called the Hanjun, the Han Army, which segregated the Han soldiers from the rest of the Han subjects, giving them privileges and in return securing their loyalty. So that is basically my presentation. There are still few questions that I'm asking myself, so I'm also bringing it up since this is a webinar, and I really would appreciate your input. So first, what are the extent and limits of the political influence of ethnic rhetoric? Although I can lay out the ethnic rhetoric, I still cannot say like how important it was. For sure, there are other ways for the Manchu ruling house or the ruler to leverage against their own ethnic soldiers for proof of loyalty. Second, are there other examples of ethnic rhetoric in early modern multi-ethnic polities? Lastly, it is also very intriguing why the body-mind dichotomy. As I said, the Manchu was a very simple language. And this body at the Qing, mind at the Ming dichotomy was only appeared within that period of time for a few years, from 1638 to 1640. After that, it just disappeared as these Han soldiers just show their loyalty and military value. So why suddenly there was this body-mind dichotomy? And does it have any metaphysical or like conceptual idea, or was it just an expression of Hong Taiji? So these are some questions that I'm still asking myself. Anyway, thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.